Hey guys, so in this video we're going to be looking at some of the behind the scenes stuff in Tucker's death animation I made. So starting with the main scene here, I did a lot of stuff differently, a lot of mainly in rendering and lighting. I also used a new rig. Um, it's the geometry on the new rig is the same, except for a few things. There's slight modifications, but overall it's pretty much the same. But the difference lies in the controls. I redid the entire skeleton and all the controls to make it much more friendly to use. So if you watched my last behind the scenes, you'll remember the old rig had like a control panel over off to the right here with a bunch of stuff. I really cut down on how much was going on um, and made the movements kind of more take care of themselves almost. And it made it a lot easier to animate, a lot more intuitive. Yeah, and it was a lot better. Also I added a lot of more face controls, like the lip quiver at the end with Syndicate. I saw a lot of people liked. I like that. But yeah, things like that, which the old rig really couldn't do. So also smooth mesh is off. So if I come on here and turn it back on, you can see smooth. I have it off now for playback's sake. If smooth mesh was on, it would play at like 5 frames a second. So don't want that. So playing through, blah blah blah, talking. And Tucker walks in. Oh, so for lighting, down here in the cave, I actually used 5 lights. Like I said, I did a lot of stuff differently with lighting. Usually, I would just have like 2 or 3 lights, all pretty close to white. And this one, I did more stylistic lights, so much more saturated colors. I used to would just normally stick with like white light, maybe tinted a little bit. Um, but in this case, you can see it's a pretty saturated blue, at least for a light. A little bit of saturation on a light goes a long way. So you can see these colored lights are pretty saturated, which I look a lot more, like I said, stylistic. I think I said that already, but yeah. Um, really made the final result look a lot better. So he comes up here. Um, so this was animated. I saw a few people wondering. This was animated slow. I didn't render it out. I didn't animate it in normal speed and then slow it down in post. That would have made it a little bit harder. I would have had to rendered it out at like 60 frames a second and then slowed it down. By the way, the default frame rate was 24 frames a second, which is pretty much film standard. So it's much easier to just animate it slowly rather than normal speed and then slow it down later, because in that case I would have had to have rendered these shots out at a higher frame rate. So he comes swinging, everybody's in slow motion. So I kind of stuck to what the characters were actually doing when Tucker got killed. He was really coming. Had just come back from the ocean. He was on a boat coming in when Tucker died. So that didn't really fit too well. Like I started to animate that in, and there wasn't really anything to focus on. In this case, he's chopping the tree, but with the boat, I wasn't feeling it. So I just decided, you know what, he's going to chop wood instead. Um, so yeah, he's chopping the wood. I'm pretty sure she was smelting stuff, making food or something. I know Syndicate was farming. I kind of went for what I wanted them to be doing, kind of mixed in with what they were actually doing, so to fit a little bit better. I really the seeds part here. I don't know why. This is like my favorite part. The seeds just like flying there for some reason. I really like that. Um, Creeper walking. I also really like this scene too. I don't know. There's these simple shots for some reason. I like them the most. The slow mo was really fun to make. It's something I'd never done before, and I really liked it. So yeah, he reaps over, drops down. For the puffing up and exploding part, the glowing was done in post. The actual swelling up was animated in, but the glowing was in post, and I'll get to all the post stuff later in After Effects. But yeah, that was done. Someone asked about that, so that was done in After Effects, which I'll show in a minute here. No. Also, you can see this weird black overlapping in the face. I probably should fix that on the rig though, but if smooth mesh on kind of fixes that. So, well, not well. It's still there here, but in the renderings, it's gone. So and then there's the explosion. He's like, huh? And then originally I was gonna have him saying like be like, Tom, no. That's what like the turn and then like the steps. That's what he would have said it like that right there. He would have said it. Jam no. But I searched through footage for like probably an hour through like old Mionite footage and Trinity Island footage. I figured, I mean, Sparkles is always yelling at Tom, so I figured it wouldn't be too hard to find him like Tom, no. Um, but after like an hour, I kind of just gave up because I could not find a good clip of it. So I kind of just was like, oh, he'll be mute for that. Um, Syndicate comes like I didn't when I was animating this. His feet actually don't touch the ground here, and especially on a frame like this, you can't really tell. But when it's rendered with shadows and stuff, you can easily tell his foot's off the ground. And I don't know how that happened because I had the feet snap to the grid, so it should have been perfectly flat on the ground. But somehow I think probably the master control might have gotten moved up a little bit, and I didn't see this happen until after it was rendered. And rather than fix it and re-render, I just cropped that out. So if you go back and watch, you'll see you can't really ever see his feet contact. It's just cropped out. And then he turns around. And then we have him come in. Tucker's all damaged. So the this blood stuff here. Let me hop into perspective real quick. Okay, where's camera? Camera group. Okay. Whoop. No. There we go. So there's a little bit of talk about this. Oop, whoop. What is going on? Let me do this. There we go. So originally it didn't look that gruesome. It looks even worse in the real-time rendering for some reason. Oh yeah, look at that. It didn't look that bad when I was making it, so I started out by modeling the body part to look all indented, and then I started painting on with Maya's artisan brush tool. I started just painting it out red, and then I went over top with a darker red, kind of blotches. And then I found a brush that replicated the little bumps on your skin, which is, if you look right here, this is what these are here. And then I scaled it up a bunch and then just started kind of blotching it around. It looked like veins or cracking or something like that. So I thought it looked really good, and it didn't look this bad. Like I said, it didn't look this bad when I was painting it on. So after I finished painting it in Maya, I took the texture into Photoshop, made some adjustments, and then I saved it as black and white for the bump, and then inverted black and white for the spectral highlights. And after I plugged all of that into the texture, it turned into this, and I was like, oh, that's kind of nasty. But instead of going through and fixing it, or making it less gruesome, I just left it. And you have this. So for those of you who were kind of grossed out, have a good look at it. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, so that's that. I'll hop back in here. So Syndicate Falls, the lip quivers. There it is. Show shade. You can't really tell that well. Playback. And then he's like, "Bye, guys." Dies. So that's pretty much it for the main scene. Let's hop into the outro part. Alright, so here is the Trinity Island outro thing. This was rendered out in 3 separate passes. We have the particles here. There are the symbols. I'll hide that real quick. That's not it. What? There we go. If you're wondering, I'm just selecting things in the outliner off screen. So we have the symbols here. Hopefully you could tell this. I was watching it and I realized this is kind of blown out a little bit, especially in where the tail area is. Hopefully you can tell this is a little fox symbol. So for Sparkles and Syndicate, their symbols were easy to come up with. I mean, their profile pictures are pretty easy to turn into like a symbol like this. For Jericho and Sanya, it was a little bit harder. I just kind of turned his face into like an outline thing, and she didn't really have like a symbol deal, so I kind of just got a little creative, made a little fox thing. But yeah, they flip in, animate to glow. If you don't see them glow in real time, I'll go ahead and render out a quick frame. There. So they glow in, he fades out, and this is on its own pass, so that's it. So that'll go. So that will go underneath. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Okay, that'll go underneath this. And yeah, like I said here, the particles. So we have a little locator here, and this is going along this motion path that's in the shape of the Trinity symbol. Goes around, and then there's a particle emitter parented to it there. And there's actually two particle emitters. So one is these gray cloud looking things. Obviously this is not how they look in the render, obviously. And then emitting from each cloud are the little spark ones. So the particles are emitting particles. So that comes in. And then this is on its own separate pass here. And then on top of that comes this here. And this is animated to kind of like whoosh in. There's a light here that animates to kind of give the spectral highlights of the shift. So if I scrub through, you can see that. So yeah, that's all pretty much that went into the outro thing, at least from Maya. There's a lot more done in post, which I'll get to in a moment here. Alright, so now we're in After Effects. So I did a lot more in post than I usually do. In the past, I've kind of just rendered it out, maybe adjusted a little bit, maybe a little bit of like brightness contrast adjustments in post, and then called it that, uploaded that image. In this case, I did a lot more, which we'll get into in a minute. So starting with, I rendered it out in 3 separate passes. One pass being the beauty pass, is what you're looking at now. Then the next being ambient occlusion, and then the third being depth, which control the depth of field blur. If I were to do this all in one pass, also motion blur was added in post, but if I were to have the full everything render out in one pass, it would have been like 4 minutes per frame. In the case of rendering out in passes, it was about a minute per frame on average. It varied a little bit. Some images might have been closer to like 2 minutes, some might have been closer to like 20 seconds, but I think about a minute is a fair estimation of the average per frame. So it took about 2 days, can't remember exactly. It was like 2 days, I think, of rendering. And if I were to have gone all with everything in one pass, it would have been almost 4 times that probably. So huge time saver. So let's have a look here. So this is the composition that layers everything together, depth of field and all the separate passes. So here's the depth of field with and without, and then ambient occlusion here. And if you're not aware, what ambient occlusion is basically when 2 surfaces are near each other, the area around there will be darkened. So you can see in the corners here, where all these surfaces are near each other, it'll get dark. Oh, that's not the wrong. There, it gets dark. You can see this a little bit better, probably like right here. So that's with ambient occlusion, and that's without. And I guess in the trees it shows the best. But yeah, that's ambient occlusion. And then we have depth of field, which is like focusing, but blurring where the camera's not in focus. So like I said, I rendered that out as a depth pass. So if we hide all these, this is what the rendering looked like of the depth. So far away areas are dark, and the closer you are to the camera, the brighter the white is. And basically, you can use that, plug it into the blur effect, and based on the shade of gray, that's how much the image will be blurred, if that makes any sense. So I'll go ahead and click on this. So here's the camera lens blur, and then blur map, and then I have layers set to 5. depth, which is a depth pass. And here is the focal distance. So as I change this, if I change, this is telling the effect that this shade of gray will be in focus and everything else will be out of focus. Or as the further you get away from this value of luminance, the more blurred it gets. So if I turn this all the way up to 100% white, everything really close to the camera will be in focus. If I turn it all the way down to black, everything far away will be everything far away will be in focus. So you'll plug this into the depth pass into the blur and then just animate the focus distance to be where you want it to be. So that's pretty much all. And so as far as saving time in renders, if you're rendering out with depth of field on the same pass as beauty, it pretty much doubles the amount of time it takes to render a frame. But Maya has to calculate the depth anyway, and so if you're having depth as a separate pass, you can it doesn't really add any extra time to the rendering. It has to do that anyway. It only takes a few extra seconds just to be able to save out the file. So doing a little bit of work in After Effects with the depth pass, you can save yourself a huge amount of time rendering, and that's what I did here. So he comes in, swings. So let's actually look at the before and afters, because this is just the passes all layered on top of each other, and this main comp here is where I actually applied effects. So for the majority of the shots, there's pretty much these effects here. RSMB stands for Real Smart Motion Blur. Like I said, I didn't render out motion blur with the image. I did that in post, so that's what that is. Lens flare. This isn't in all the shots. It's just pretty much in the above overworld, or on the top layer shots. A little bit of lighting effects. A glow effect. I don't know. I didn't say no. I didn't say this before. I kind of used a lot of glow because like he's dying, so it's all like oh. So I think glow is appropriate there. This actually isn't that shot. Here it is. So in this one I used some exposure, but basically the biggest ones was a curves effect, a lot of glow, not a lot of glow, but glow in a lot of shots, and then a brightness and contrast to kind of fine tune, and of course motion blur. So I'll go and do some before and after. So here's the before, bleh, and here's the after, much better. And like I said, in the past, I would have just rendered it out and pretty much called it done. So this would have been the final product if I didn't bother to take the time and kind of mess around with this stuff. Well, I guess more fairly, this would have been the final product versus this. So there's a big difference there. Hop back here in the caves. Another big, even more difference. Here's the before, or there's the before. There's the after. You can see this a little bit better later on. Where is it? Right here. So before, after. Oh, look how much better it looks. Oh, kind of pains me that in the past I've wasted all the potential. A few minutes of little edits can make. Yeah. Yeah. That's the extent really of the post-production. Yeah, a few more before and after. Oh, so pretty. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. So that's pretty much all the post-production done on the main scene. Let's hop into the outro thing. All right. So like I said before, each of the elements of this were rendered out on a separate pass as well. So we have the particles here. There's the particles, and then there's this thing, and blah blah blah. Also, yeah, the text was done in post completely too, which I'll get to. This was pretty much total randomness how this came about. I'll get to that in a minute. But so here's what's this? I'm not very good at naming things. Okay, so here's the main one. Okay, so I scaled. I'm trying to remember what I did here exactly. So I think I did. Yeah, this was just layering everything on top of each other, and I think I did effects in this too. So I didn't do as many. Didn't go as effects heavy in this. So we have the symbols here, an animated distort effect to like kind of like warp it in, like, and then fades out. This was a bulge effect that just is animated to grow and scale to kind of suck them in. And then right on top of it, this layer here is where the particles come in, do their thing. And then this layer here is the physical objects that make up the Trinity symbol. And there's just a mask here. It's animated to swoosh in like that. And then there's a little bit of glow that eventually fades out. Right there. And then that thing finishes up, and then it swooshes back out. Oh no, it doesn't. I guess I did that in this composition. So here's where the texts come in, and also a lot of the effects. So there's without, and with. There's a few effects I guess I did here, but it looks like I did most of the changes in this master composition here. So the text, I couldn't really picture what I wanted the text to look like too much. I was kind of just going through fonts, going through colors. I I wasn't really feeling it. Like when I was making this part, I knew what I knew what I wanted it to look like. I had it visualized in my head, and I knew what I was doing. With the text, I couldn't really think it up. So I was basically I started with some random fonts, found one I liked. Started messing around with the color, see what matched up. And it's just looking kind of flat. So let me, so this is what the text looked like, and it was like, I was not feeling it at all. And then, like I said, I was just messing around. I was dropping a bunch of different effects on it, trying to get something that kind of stood out. And eventually, I just dropped on this. What is it called? I remember. No, it's not here. Where? What? Oh, it's probably on this adjustment layer. No. Where is it? Oh, this is a solid. What am I doing? This is it. Eventually, I found this effect. Yeah, this really brought it home. Because without it, it just looks like this. With it, look at that. It's like glass. Hold on. Oh, look at that. So cool. It's like this cool, like indented glass or something. It's like glowing from within. It looks so much. I didn't even understand what exactly this effect is like doing, because it was in the distort effects, and by default it looks like this. So I don't really know, but after messing around a little bit, I finally got this result. And it made me so happy because it looks so cool, especially when there's a light there in the center, and it just kind of like diffuses through. I don't know. When I dropped this on top, and one of these sliders here pretty much was the main thing that changed into this. I was just like, yes, this is perfect. And then yeah, that's the story behind the text. So there was kind of luck there. I really was like so disappointed because it looked so cool, but I knew I needed the text like to be cool too, in order for it to look cool, but it just wasn't there, and then it was there. And I was like, yeah. And then it does this fade out thing. This actually fades out, and I did that in Audition. Or what? Audition, yes. Audition is an audio editing program, so I don't know what made me think of that. In Premiere, it fades out. I'm not really going to show what I did in Premiere because it's pretty much just tiny bits of chopping up and sound, so there really isn't much to look at there. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for the behind-the-scenes stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed. Any questions, comment, or Twitter. I'll have my Twitter in the description below. But yeah, thanks for watching, and looking forward to the next one. Wink, nudge. Yeah, bye. You thought I forgot to do how the creeper explosion went. After I finished recording, I was patting myself on the back. I was like, oh, I forgot to do the creeper exploding part. So I'll go over that real quick. Basically, for the creeper part, there's two adjustment layers. Well, one is just an overall glow, so you can ignore this. So you can see there's three here, right here. These all have to do with the explosion part. Top one isn't really necessary. It's just another adjustment to the whole image. The second one down is the creeper blow up part, or like puffing up. So basically there's just a curves effect that's animated to make all the dark areas real bright, so it looks like he's glowing up. It doesn't show it's animated, so I think it's like glitched or something. But basically, it starts out where it's doing nothing and then just animates to this position here where all the dark areas are super bright. And the mask here is animated to move along with how the creeper is puffing up or whatever. And the second layer, there is, and again, a mask around the character with a lot of feathering, and just a glow effect is animated to go with the creeper glowing. So it looks like the glowing of the creeper is affecting the character here. You can see as the creeper gets brighter, his face and stuff gets brighter. And this one isn't showing up as being animated either. It's this glow here that's being animated, which is weird. I guess it's just glitched out or something, but that's how that's done. And then for him exploding, go back here. So there's a lens flare. That's the source is right about here, right off screen, and it's animated to get brighter and brighter. So let me click on that. We can see lens flare here, and it's animated to get a little bit brighter, really subtly, not super obvious, just subtly get brighter. And then there's also an explosion, some stock footage of an explosion here, off screen with some adjustments to it to make it fit a little bit better. But it's just animated to be off screen and then right in the middle of the screen, so it looks like this explosion is all glowing. And then there's just this. Oh, this is also now so this brightness here is coming from also the lens flare. So the lens flare gets animated real slowly here, and then all of a sudden it gets super bright in these last few frames here. And then there's a bulge effect to distort, so it looks like he's getting blown. And like the shockwave kind of, I guess, contributes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So lens flare to make it look like he's getting blown up. Or what am I talking? What am I even saying? Lens flare for the light, explosion, so it looks like an explosion, and then bulge to distort it for the shockwave and blowing him. And yeah, that's pretty much all there was to it. Once again, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.